Sudan has never been what I call a stable country. There's always been 3 or 4 civil wars. But there was a terrible guy, Omar al-Bashir, who ruled from 1989. He had a coup, came to power. At the beginning, nobody thought that he would turn out to be such an evil and wicked person. And he stayed in power really for 30 years. And when the last 10 years of his rule, maybe I should say 2005 onwards, the world started noticing regularly the northern tribes were attacking the southern tribes in Sudan. And that is where the Darfur region and Darfur area was highly Christianized. There were a lot of Christians. And the regular persecution and killing of these Christians, the world media basically said it's an ethnic, tribal strife. And I don't think that was an accurate description, because there is some truth in the sense, in Sudan, there's a lot of Africans, and then there's a lot of Arabs. Now, if you look at them, you can't differentiate between the Arab Sudanese or the African. They're intermarried, they look alike, and yet the media tried to project it. It is an Arab versus African kind of an ethnic tribal war. And that is where I feel terrible that they don't tell the truth. It was the mercenaries of war, driven by an Islamization ideology, literally killing defenseless Christians for a period of time. So, but then certainly Southern Sudan is free. I mean, it's an independent country. There are tribal connotations. I'm not saying there are no tribal connotations, but while all this was going on, Omar al-Bashir, who literally lifted up this guy, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, this guy who is the head of RSF, that is the Rapid Forces. I mean, it really is formed out of the Janjaweed were the guerrillas who killed a lot of the Christians and raped and burnt villages. Really, these are war criminals. Now, the Hague, they basically said from 2010 onwards, Omar Bashir needs to be arrested. And finally, these two, the military head and the military head's name is Burhan, Abdel Fattah Burhan, and they both agreed, and they basically agreed to surrender this guy. But what the world does not know is that this guy, who I earlier just said, Dagalo, or he is known as Hemti. Hemti is really a nickname that they use for him. And he had allowed Russians access into the gold mines. So Sudan, the third largest country in Africa, was part of a network Putin and his associates were doing across Africa. They have private militia, and this Wagner Group, Prigozhin. Wagner Group is a very important element of this war in Ukraine. So when you connect all this, you suddenly recognize there is a much more complex operation going, and that is what Ezekiel talks about. So it's interesting. Chapter 37 and 38 and 39 in the book of Ezekiel, to the world, God tells them, is telling the Gentile world, I'll give you a sure sign. That is, the dry bones of the house of Israel will come together. It will be a mighty army. That is chapter 37. Then God tells to a power in the north. And if you draw a straight line from Jerusalem all the way, it goes into Moscow. Then God says, I will drag you with hooks I'll bring you out and I will humble you, destroy you on the mountains of Lebanon, north of Israel. Now, I would say that is a very unlikely scenario because Russia is a superpower and Israel is a small power. But now what is going on in Ukraine makes you think, wow, this is not, this prophecy, it is heading towards that direction, the arrogance of Russia. In spite of all of what they have gone through, they are not willing to consider peace. And that is where the tragedy is. And that is where the Sudan civil war has become a war between Egyptian army supporting Sudan military and Russia having a proxy war. And the Russians want to have peace in Sudan, and God is not allowing that.